we started the company just over 2 years ago with an eye on filling a gap in the CRM market, particularly around CRM deployments, CRM integrations, which a lot of enterprises were needing. But what we started to realize very quickly was that there was even a greater need for a lot of the integrations and the data flows that fed into those reports that we were generating out of the CRM tools. And pretty soon we were in the integrations game. And then from there, it carried on going because customers sort of said, well, you're doing all these integrations from all these different tools, but since we want to transition and do a digital migration anyway, how about you help building the front end and the back end and the data lake? And so suddenly we got into the entire outsourced product development and systems integrations game.
Oh, any particular audiences and sectors that you're focused on?
What we've found is that we don't have to verticalize in the enterprise nearly as much as the needs. The needs are very common. And what probably differentiates customers more is the size of the customer and what they're willing to spend. So large enterprises are going to have larger applications. They're going to have these big honking ERP systems, the most expensive CRM, ITSM monitoring management tools. And they're also more likely to have outsourced already to an MSP or even a systems integrator. And smaller companies often, when they're at startup mode, they don't know where to start, or they've grown a little bit and they're starting to use a lot of SaaS tools. But they suddenly realize that these SaaS tools are still isolated from each other. So even as they use them, they need to tie their billing system into their CRM system, into their onboarding or e-commerce platform and so on as well. And so what we tend to do is then get involved in helping to tie all these systems together and then work closely with MSP partners on the services side.
That's interesting. And in your business today and with the clients that you work, how do you address the skills gap challenges and the training challenges? Because I'm sure there's some knowledge you have to pass on to your clients, and maybe there's internal needs and issues that you're dealing with. If you could comment a bit on that.
Yeah, I think it's no secret that everybody's been battling to find the requisite skills, right? And the skills need is getting broader and broader, because you have to not only know what's going on internally in the homegrown systems, the in-house systems, but as they're starting to outsource into a plethora of SaaS products and hyperscale products and managed hosting products and so on, suddenly the skills needs to get broader and broader and broader. And then often, even if the customer knows what's going on at the infrastructure layer, it's then very rare that they also have an applications team. So to get somebody who understands facilities and systems and virtualization and nowadays Kubernetes and all of the container systems and managing containers even more complex, and then databases and then applications is a rarity.
And so, have a soft skills on top of it.
Oh yeah, so it's just too much at the end of the day. And so if they have an established system, they can go to an MSP. If they need a transformation of some kind, now they're realizing that everybody's fighting fires in their business and they just can't handle it. So they're actually inadvertently putting the pressure on us. And now the pressure is on us to actually find that skill set. And so
how do you find that skill set? What do you do?
We got fortunate being from South Africa. We found a niche in the South African market that had been undertapped. It had really only been exploited by AWS and Facebook and some of the bigger companies. And then there was Dimension Data, and then there was a big drop-off after that. And then there was small South African companies. And there was a plethora of talent coming out of Cape Town in particular, who were generating 22,000 technologists a year. And so we started to tap into that, and we started growing the base very,
Are there
quickly.
particular universities there in town? Or?
There are, yes. Okay. The great thing is the system is very hierarchical and does all the filtering for you. So effectively, the brightest talent is already going to University of Cape Town, Stellenbosch University. And then Belgium have actually opened up a Belgian campus, which is very strong down there. So a lot of our employees are scattered, but most of them seem to be in the Cape Town area, which is producing the vast majority of technologists. They speak English very well. They're half the price of their North American counterparts at the moment, and the skill sets are very high. And to be brutally honest, COVID has in some ways assisted, because they had nothing better to do than work 16-hour plus days at home. So it served us very well up until this point, and it allowed us to really launch what we have today.
That's great. And when you bring the talent in, obviously they haven't been exposed to the cloud industry, they haven't been in the sector. How do you upskill them beyond their kind of foundational skills?
Yeah, that's a great point. So what at first we were hiring newbies out of college, graduates and so on, just for the energy and the aptitude and attitude. which was great. But then we quickly realized we needed middle management as well. And so we then shifted gears, hired middle management to actually act purely as not worker bees, but actually as the mentors and guiding light for a lot of these employees. The next thing we did is we committed ourselves to continued education and training for the whole company. And so we've committed ourselves on a quarterly basis that the whole company should be progressing in their certifications and education. They're free to choose if they have the time, wherever they want to go and whatever they want to study. But what we do mandate at this point, we've mandated certain structured courses, and we've gone down the path of AWS right now. So, as part and parcel of trying to become a partner to these hyperscalers, you have to actually have a certain number of volume of people at certain levels. We've gone through the first layer, and now we're starting to get specialists in our organization around each of those areas as well.
And any particular technologies you're using to sort of systematize the training and certification?
Yeah, so we started off with live training over Zoom.
Sure.
And that had pros and cons. It helped bond the team at the early stages, which was probably good. But I think that the team generally didn't love the pace and committing themselves to concentrating for 1 or 2 solid days in a row, and didn't necessarily love the trainer, and that proved problematic. And we realized that we were also, as a startup, spending a hell of a lot of money on it. So we experimented then by swinging to online courses, and there's a lot of them as a Coursera and so on. But AWS themselves, they've got not only a ton of partners, but their own training programs. And so we tried the online version, and that worked exceptionally well. Everybody actually preferred it. We gave them time, and we said, here's your deadline by which you have to have the certification. Because if you don't create the deadline, everybody pushes it on. And that put pressure on ourselves too, because we committed ourselves. But we said you have to commit at least 2 hours a day to this. They did it. Everybody got the certification. They were enthusiastic about it. We made we didn't hide the fact that this was actually good for their careers. We've already had one employee move on to Google. We can't compete with that kind of price point. But it gives them hope, and we want that open relationship. And that employee continues to work with us now, even if we ever need him. And we love that relationship that we have. But certainly the online cost us less, put people in a better mood that they were able to concentrate in the early hours of the day or whenever it suited them best. And we found that it was just working a lot better.
It sounds like you're very progressive in the way you train and upskill your people, because generally you also spent 9 years at ScienceLogic, right?
Correct.
Obviously we've been in the same space and industry for a while. What I have observed that not a lot of companies are really prioritizing skills building for their staff. Why do you think so? Because everybody is talking about skills gap. Everybody understands that the problems are real, but why are they not allocating the necessary budget and not prioritizing those programs?
Well, that's a hard question, but what I'll tell you anecdotally, I've got a couple of answers, but certainly when I've talked to the average CIO and decision maker, and you talk about their priorities, particularly you said coming out of ScienceLogic, you're coming in and you're trying to solve a particular genre of problem for them. The problem is that unless your timing is spectacular, you might be number 8 or 9 or 10 on the list, because they have a list of 200 priorities. And so that's their biggest problem, is that can you afford to have anybody get the luxury of upskilling in a different direction when they're still fighting fires and trying to fix the technical debt that they have on their books right this second.